Hey everyone, so my name's Funke, coming to you live from WESIE Academy. So in this video, I'm just going to finalize the frameworks that I've been speaking about. So we've spoken about the thinking coaching framework. We've spoken about standards, where I keyed into your standards as a coach, your ability to develop people and not just create systems. What was the other one and the narrative you tell, as well as the other ones that I spoke about. Today, I want to speak about decision. That's the framework, decision framework. And I'm going to break it down like I did with the other one. But I'm going to emphasize on a couple that I think are more poignant that I want you to focus on and to reflect deeply on. All of them mattered, but, there's some that matter, I think, a little bit more. So there are 8, and for this one, it's probably one for the officials. However, because officiating is basically about decision making, everything they do, or everything officials do is about decision making. I actually feel that there's a lot you can learn, that a lot coaches can learn from this as well. So the first thing I want to talk about is letter D. D is for detachment. Can you stay neutral emotionally? Emotions is what makes sports special. Most of us are passionate about sports. I think that as an athlete, I was very emotional and maybe a bit too emotional, because I do think that there are times where you kind of need to act and perform from a point of emotional neutrality. And what do I mean? I think that there are times where you need to learn how to put your emotions aside to focus on what's in front of you. And I'm not sure I ever really was able to do that as a player, because my passion and my emotions were so strong when it came to me functioning as an athlete, which is one of the reasons why I knew that I was never going to be a good coach. So the reason I highlight officials is because officials, I feel in some way, are held to an extraordinary standard where, regardless of what, they're accountable. They don't get second chances. So as a coach, if you make a mistake, an error in judgment, an error in decision making during a game, or as a player, if you make a mistake, you can correct yourself. You will get a second chance most times in the game to do something else to cover up. It's not like that with a lot of officials. A lot of officials don't get a second chance. If someone's reffing a game and they end up giving someone a red card or a technical or disqualifying them, and if they did it for the wrong reasons, they don't get a second chance to correct that mistake. And the impact of that mistake could be the difference between one team winning a major event and another team losing. Same as those people that are maybe the people that do the statistics. My tongue is failing me right now. If they make a mistake in recording the statistics, we've had events where the people doing statistics haven't recorded things properly. There is no second chance, and it messes up the reference point for the player. They are held to an extraordinary standard. And I just want us to take a moment and remember that when we're thinking about officials. But however, that doesn't excuse them and say to them it's okay to make bad calls. But the reason I'm saying this is that they also have to detach their emotions from their decision making and make sure they're focused on the moment and making the right decision in that moment. And to do that, they need to think about your environment, how you manage pressure and noise. I used to have a coach that used to say to me, "Oh, why are you listening to the noise? See, I shout a lot. I know you don't like people shouting. I'm the coach, I shout. You've got the crowd, but at the end of the day, you're the one playing the game. All this is noise. Just block it out." And I did have to learn to find a way to block out things. And I think even now with what I do, you have to be able to manage pressure and block out the noises, because that will enable you to make great decisions. And elite officiating is about elite decision making and making the right decision regardless of what's happening around you. Then what sort of cues, what things guide your decision making, and make sure you are able to see things clearly in the moment. Integrity. what lines are non-negotiable. So in the last couple of frameworks, I've kind of directly or indirectly referred to standards. And I think standards are non-negotiable. Your integrity, when you make decisions, just remember that it's your integrity on the line, and integrity is everything as an official. So what is it you're unwilling to compromise on? Then self-regulation, not really spoken about a lot, but really important. How do you reset? What's your reset mechanisms? You see, people, we all make mistakes, whatever area of sports you're functioning in, whether as an athlete, a coach, an administrator. None of us, so long as we are all humans, we are going to make mistakes. And one of the things that I felt like I learned a lot later than I would have liked to as an athlete is I didn't know how to recover because I was such an emotional player. If I made a mistake, rather than just pick up and get on with it. And there was no one to tell me that. In fact, some of the people around me made me feel even worse about those mistakes. So I didn't have a good recovery process. And I think as a coach, as an official, it's really important that you have your own mechanism to recover, to reset yourself when you make one error, so you don't end up making a series of errors after one error. Then how do you review your performances on the day? Like, how do you keep a check on yourself, decision making? If you're not reflecting and reviewing, how do you get better at making better decisions? Because you get better not through the good decisions you make, but through learning from the bad decisions you make. So you need to also have an improvement process in check for yourself. And when you're scrutinized, when you're criticized, how do you deal with that? If someone calls you after the game and criticizes you, how do you deal with that? I know that, like I said, you need to block out noise and pressure, but you also need to be willing to listen to good criticism as well, and how you serve the game. So I think the key thing I want to leave you with when I talk, so we've spoken D for detachment, just to summarize: D for detachment, E for environment, C for clarity, I for integrity, S for self-regulation, I for improvement, O for ownership, how you respond to criticism, N for neutrality, how do you serve the game, and how quickly. Essentially, the question I want to ask you with, and the one that I want you to take away and apply to yourself, at least in the coming week, is making sure you're able to reset and return yourself to neutral after you make a mistake or after you make a decision that instinctively at the time maybe was not the right decision. Having a reset mechanism in place for making bad decisions or making wrong decisions is really important. And I think that's for not just for officials, but for coaches as well. So I think I'm going to end this slide here. And when I come back, it will just be to close off and to just give a closing and summarize everything we've spoken. I hope that you found this video useful. If you have, maybe give me a like, maybe give me a comment and give me feedback at how I can improve or what else you want to add or anything at all. That's why we have the chat set up. So I'm going to close now, and I will see you in a couple of minutes or when you're ready. Bye.